Both the Senate and House have now passed the bill to release the files of the Epstein case. The bill is awaiting President Trump's signature. Joining us live to discuss is former policy advisor to President Barack Obama, Laurie Watkins, and Project 21 ambassador Tim Parrish. Thank you both for joining us. Laurie, we're going to start with you today. President Trump has emphasized that prominent Democrats are mentioned in these files. Do you see this as a defensive move or an offensive move?
I see this as, once again, a deflection by President Trump so he gets the heat off of himself and whatever he's been hiding, because he keeps mentioning the Democrats. So if there are all these Democratic names, which there could also be, along with maybe him and some other incriminating donors of his and people within his inner circle, then why doesn't he have everything released? And he's not doing that. He made all these members of Congress go through all of these hoops. And now my biggest concern, and we're already seeing this today by the press conference that Pam Bondi gave, that now that there's going to be an open and active investigation, that not all of the information will be released. So it will be heavily redacted, heavily scrubbed, and these survivors, once again, will not have their justice as they intend, as they would like, as all of these members of Congress would like. So it was very convenient for all of these members, except for one in the House, to go on the record voting yes, but that was all a cover, and to give them cover for later to say, oh, I voted for this, but nothing is going to be released as it should be. So that's my opinion on this. Just a deflection.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, quite the contrary. The president not only has said that he's willing to sign this bill, he's spoken to this and said that when the bill comes to his desk, he's going to sign it and make it law. Look, this, first of all, shouldn't be a political issue. This shouldn't be about scoring points against the president. It should be about getting justice for the victims, ensuring that they have the resources in place after going through such trauma, and preventing something like this from ever happening again. The fact that this is some political stunt that my colleague here is trying to score some points against the president is actually irresponsible, in my opinion, and quite disgusting. This should be about getting justice for the victims. And the president has said if a bill makes it to his desk, which we now know it will because it's passed the House and it's passed the Senate, in the Senate, by the way, the Republican-controlled Senate unanimously passed, he's going to sign the bill and bring justice. And about the redactions, every investigation has redactions. There's people that you have to protect when there's active investigations. There's certain sensitivities that have to be looked after. And so the Attorney General is doing what every Attorney General, Republican or Democrat, has done since the Justice Department has been around. So I'm sorry, there's no smoking gun here. They're doing exactly what we've always done with investigations. The president's going to sign the bill when it makes it to his desk. He said it, and I believe him, and I believe the majority of Americans believe him as well.
Tim,
and
let's
with
talk
all
for
due
a moment
respect
about the political atmosphere.
This is not political, and we heard that many times yesterday by every single one of the survivors, including a member of your own party there with Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying very explicitly to the president, who she looked in the camera and directly made this declaration, that this is not politics. This is not political. And with all due respect to
I agree.
Sir,
So let's not try to score points against the president.
You didn't need to go through anything in Congress. You didn't need to go. I let you finish. I'm going to ask you to let me finish, please.
That's dangerous. We always need to go through things in Congress.
The president could have released this and had an executive order, but he is choosing not to.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. I believe in the process
Tim,
where we let the legislative branch actually act and the president signs the bill. That's how we've always done policy in this country. Why you all of a sudden are okay with the president doing an executive order? Every other executive order, there's an issue. But now when he
the
wants
president
to follow
has issued over 150 executive orders already.
Now it's a problem. So please spare me and spare the American people the politics. That's not what this is about.
Let's make sure we can let each other finish so that our audience can understand where both sides are coming from. I understand this is a very heated topic, but we want to make sure people understand what you guys are actually saying. So a national NPR PBS Marist poll shows Democrats in a strong position if the midterms were held today, roughly similar to November 2017 and Trump's first term. Laurie, should we be skeptical of polling at this stage? What is the Democratic strategy heading into the midterms right now?
The Democratic strategy is going to be similar, if not building upon what we saw in a sweeping results from elections last Tuesday, which were that the Democratic candidates that are running, all three of them, very different races, I'd like to point out, very different candidates also. But their message was on affordability. Their message was on bringing down inflation. Their message was on bringing more money into Americans' pockets. And healthcare was another big issue for them. Affordable childcare was another issue. The ACA, I think we're going to get into this topic a little later. Healthcare in this country, among other things, are astronomically ballooning. Okay? That's just one issue that the American public is getting hit with right now. Every single thing is going up. And Donald Trump knows this, which is why just over the weekend, he issued a declaration about, and he's going to now do an executive order. By the way, the president is all for executive orders, to my colleague over there who says we should go through the legislative branch of government, about removing tariffs on certain items, because he knows, and he's hearing from his Republican colleagues, that the American people are hurting, and that's what they care about. They didn't hold any town halls in the 41, 42 odd days that the government was shut down like the Democrats did. But they did hear from people writing, from people emailing, and from people trying to come to their offices telling them that it is unaffordable to live right now. And the president throwing all of these balls, these hosting world leaders in this just ridiculous kind of look, and taking down the East Wing of the White House, spending money now he wants to try to paint the old executive office building, etc., when he should be putting money into the hands of the American people. And he's out of touch, he's out of reality, and he doesn't understand that they are losing. And that 14 points that you mentioned, they're only going to keep going up.
Tim, your response to what Laurie just said, but also with everything that we've seen coming out of the Republican-controlled Congress and White House at this point, do you think Republicans have put themselves in a position for winning the midterms?
Well, that was a lot of a diatribe of Trump derangement syndrome if I've ever seen it. Actually, let's talk about some facts. In Virginia, when you look at the election, wait a second, we talked about letting each other finish, so take your own advice. So in Virginia, what we saw with the election is something that's happened for 50 years. Virginia always goes toward the party who's not in the White House. In this case, there's a Republican in the White House, and the Democrats won the election. It's the same thing in 21 that we saw with Governor Glenn Youngkin. Democrats had the White House. Virginia votes for the party that's not in the White House. So that's not some big smoking gun. I'm actually baking cookies so that I can hand them out if we're supposed to celebrate this. The Democrat Party still doesn't know who their leader is. Is it the Modini Party? Is it the Chuck Schumer Party? Who's the leader of this party? What's their message to the American people? My colleague talked about giving the American people back money in their pocket. How are you planning on doing that? Nothing is free. You can't just come up with these ideas and then just say, oh, we're going to put money back in your pocket. Let's talk about affordability. You can sell the American people the okie doke if you want to. They're not going to buy it. This poll is not some smoking gun. This is a party who's still directionless. They're leaderless. They don't know what direction they're going. And you've got the guy up in New York City who's the mayor-elect. Is that the vision that we're talking about? Is that the poll that we're responding to, that vision in New York for the entire country? I don't think so. You talked about the president spending money on the East Wing. That's all donor money and his private funds. I've talked about this 100 times. It's not any money from the American people. Oh, and by the way, of course the president is hosting world leaders, because although the government is shut down, thanks to Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats who held the American people hostage with this shutdown, the president can chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. We still have to do diplomacy around the world. So of course he's going to host world leaders. Of course he's going to still execute on the business of the executive branch. That's what we expect of our president. And so I don't know what that was, but the reality is that this is not a smoking gun in a poll. It's one single poll. We've seen polls be wrong, and the Democrat Party has still got to get their feet underneath them before I start to celebrate any big wins on that side.
All right, and with that, our time is up. Laurie Watkins and Tim Parrish, thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to get into a couple of other topics, but our time has run out, so thank you both for joining us.